The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from dozens of species gathered around the massive crystalline table. Admiral Zix Thara of the Velkan Empire adjusted her bioluminescent crest, the purple glow reflecting her deep concern. Across from her, the insectoid ambassador Clicktar's mandibles clicked in what her species considered thoughtful consideration. "The reports are becoming impossible to ignore," announced Chancellor Morden, his reptilian features grave as he activated the central holographic display. 17 more colonies have gone silent in the Outer Rim territories. No distress signals, no escape pods, nothing but empty worlds with signs of recent habitation. The hologram showed a three-dimensional map of their galaxy, with red dots marking the disappeared colonies. The pattern was unmistakable, a steady progression inward toward the core worlds where the major civilizations thrived. What made it more terrifying was the complete absence of evidence. No weapon signatures, no debris fields, no survivors. Entire populations simply vanished. "The hegemony suggests we're dealing with a new form of stellar phenomenon," offered Ambassador Clicktar, her translator device rendering her clicks into standard galactic. "Perhaps a type of quantum storm that displaces matter across dimensional barriers." Admiral Zix Thara's crest flashed red with skepticism. Quantum storms don't leave behind perfectly preserved infrastructure. Whatever did this was selective. They took the people and left everything else untouched. She gestured at the data streaming beside the hologram. "Look at the Meridian colony analysis. Their fusion reactors were still running when our survey teams arrived. Their automated systems were functioning normally. Even their domestic animals were unharmed. Something removed only the sentient population." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, they had encountered many threats. Plague viruses that consumed organic matter, machine intelligence that sought to digitize consciousness, energy beings that fed on neural activity, but nothing that could selectively remove entire populations without damaging anything else. "There is another possibility," said a small, trembling voice from the far end of the table. All eyes turned to Scholar Pipnix, a diminutive amphibian whose species specialized in xenoarchaeology and ancient texts. "One that we have dismissed as folklore for centuries." Chancellor Morden's secondary eyelids fluttered with impatience. "Scholar, this is not the time for mythology lessons." "But what if the myths contain truth?" Pipnix insisted, his webbed hands shaking as he accessed his data pad. "Every major civilization in our galaxy has stories about them. The Valkans call them star demons. The hegemony refers to them as the harvest makers. My own people remember them as those who walk between stars." Admiral Zix Thara leaned forward, her military training overriding her skepticism. "Continue." "According to the oldest records, they appeared periodically throughout galactic history. Always the same pattern. Isolated colonies would disappear, then larger settlements, then entire star systems. The descriptions vary between cultures, but certain details remain consistent across all accounts." Pipnix's voice grew stronger as he warmed to his subject. "They were said to be bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, with 5 digits on each appendage. They possessed technology beyond our understanding and demonstrated an unprecedented capacity for violence." The hologram shifted to display ancient stone carvings and metal tablets that Pipnix had uploaded to the system. The images were crude but unmistakable. Tall, lean figures with opposable thumbs and forward-facing eyes. In many depictions, they were shown leading groups of various alien species away from their homeworlds. The texts described them as having hair that grew from their heads, skin that changed color based on their environment. And most disturbing of all, they were said to show remarkable creativity in their methods of warfare. Where other species relied on overwhelming force or advanced technology, these beings apparently used deception, psychology, and tactics that no military academy had ever conceived. Ambassador Clicktar's mandibles clicked nervously. You're suggesting that some mythical species is responsible for these disappearances? I'm suggesting we consider the possibility that they weren't mythical at all. Pipnix activated another section of his data. The timeline fits perfectly. According to the legends, they would appear every few thousand years, take what they needed, then vanish back into the void. The last recorded sightings date back approximately 3,000 years ago. Chancellor Morden's tongue flicked out to taste the air, a sign of deep contemplation among his people. Even if we accept this theory, it raises more questions than answers. Where did they come from? What did they want with our people? And most importantly, if they've returned after 3 millennia, what has changed? The discussion was interrupted by an urgent chime from the Council's communication array. The voice of Admiral Zix Thera's aide came through clearly. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Outer Rim defense grid. Long-range sensors have detected an unidentified vessel approaching the Kepler 442 system at impossible speeds. All conversations stopped. Kepler 442 housed one of their major agricultural colonies, home to nearly 50 million beings from 7 different species. If their theory was correct, it would be the largest target yet. Put me through to Admiral Torvek immediately, Zix Thera commanded, rising from her seat. I want every available ship converging on Kepler 442 within the hour. As the council chamber erupted into urgent communications and battle preparations, Scholar Pipnix remained seated, staring at the ancient images on his datapad. His large eyes reflected centuries of accumulated knowledge, and in their depths was something that terrified him more than the approaching threat. He had lied to the council about one crucial detail. The ancient texts didn't just describe the mysterious species' appearance and methods. They also contained warnings about what happened to civilizations that tried to fight them. According to every historical account he had studied, any species that attempted military resistance simply ceased to exist. Not conquered, not enslaved, but completely erased from the galaxy as if they had never existed at all. The most chilling part was a single line that appeared in texts across hundreds of different languages and cultures, always translated the same way. They do not simply take prisoners or claim territory, they collect. As alarms began blaring throughout the council complex, and warships across the galaxy received their mobilization orders, Pipnix wondered if they were about to become the next addition to someone's collection. The ancient texts had one final detail that made his blood run cold. According to the legends, the mysterious species had a name for themselves. They called themselves humans. Outside the council chamber, Admiral Zix Thera coordinated with her fleet commanders, unaware that their military preparations might be exactly what their unknown enemy was waiting for. 3,000 years was a long time to plan, and if the myths contained even a grain of truth, they were about to face an opponent that had spent centuries studying their weaknesses while remaining completely hidden from their surveillance networks. The Galactic Council's greatest military minds were about to discover that some myths existed because the truth was too terrifying to remember clearly. And in the depths of space, something that had been waiting patiently in the dark between stars finally began to move toward the light. Admiral Zix Thera stood on the bridge of her flagship, the mighty dreadnought Stellar Dominion, watching the tactical display with growing unease. 37 ships from 6 different species formed the largest military response fleet ever assembled in galactic history. They had arrived at Kepler 442 expecting to intercept a single mysterious vessel, but their sensors showed something impossible. "Report," she commanded, her bioluminescent crest cycling through anxious colors. Commander Veltar, a 4-armed Centaurian, manipulated multiple control interfaces simultaneously. Long-range sensors detect the unknown vessel holding position at the edge of the system. But Admiral, the readings don't make sense. According to our instruments, it's roughly 5 kilometers long, yet its mass signature suggests it's much smaller. The energy output is minimal, barely enough to power a courier ship. Could it be some form of stealth technology? Unknown. More concerning, Admiral, is what we're detecting from the colony itself. Veltar's secondary arms worked frantically at his console. We're receiving normal communications from Kepler 442b, agricultural reports, shipping manifests, entertainment broadcasts. Everything appears completely normal. But our deep space sensors are picking up massive energy fluctuations beneath the planet's surface. Admiral Zixathera felt her stomach muscles tighten. Define massive. Enough to power our entire battle fleet for several years, Admiral. The energy is coming from approximately 50,000 separate sources scattered across the planet's major population centers. The implications were staggering. Either the colonists had somehow developed revolutionary power generation technology overnight, or something else was drawing enormous amounts of energy on the surface. Neither explanation made sense. Admiral, interrupted Communications Officer Hicksnall, her feathered crest standing on end with alarm. We're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. It's broadcasting on all standard frequencies in perfect galactic standard. Put it through. The main display shifted to show a figure that made everyone on the bridge freeze in recognition. The being was exactly as Scholar Pipnix had described, roughly 2 meters tall, bipedal, with strange hair covering the top of its head and forward-facing eyes that seemed to look directly through the screen at each viewer. Its skin was an unusual pale color, and when it spoke, its mouth revealed flat teeth unlike any predator species they knew. "Greetings," the figure said, its voice carrying an unsettling calm. "I am Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Colonial Administration. I apologize for any concern our arrival may have caused, but we couldn't help noticing that you've assembled quite an impressive fleet." Admiral Zixathera found her voice after several moments of stunned silence. "You are the species from the legends, the ones who disappeared colonies." The human's expression shifted slightly. What they would later learn was called a smile, though at the time it looked more like a predatory display. Legends? How fascinating. We prefer to think of ourselves as galactic citizens, just like you. Though I admit our methods of integration have been unconventional. Integration? Zixathera's crest flashed red with anger. "You've been abducting entire populations." Abducting is such a harsh word. Commander Chen clasped her hands behind her back in a gesture that somehow made her appear even more dangerous. "We prefer strategic relocation for mutual benefit. The species we've worked with have all found their new homes quite comfortable. In fact, many of them have become valuable members of our growing community." Commander Veltar leaned close to Admiral Zixathera and whispered urgently, "Admiral, our sensors are detecting movement on the planet's surface. Massive structures are rising from underground positions across all major continents." "Your species has remarkable technology," Chen continued conversationally, apparently aware of their sensor readings, despite the fact that her single ship should have no way of monitoring their communications. "Your defensive capabilities are particularly impressive. It will be interesting to see how they perform under stress." "Is that a threat?" Zixathera demanded. "Not at all. Consider it more of a field test." Chen's smile widened. "You see, Admiral, we've been studying your species for 3,000 years. We know your military doctrines, your technological capabilities, your psychological profiles. We know that Velkans like yourself respond to threats with overwhelming force, that Centaurians pride themselves on tactical precision, and that hegemony insects excel at coordinated swarm attacks." The tactical display suddenly exploded with new contacts. Hundreds of smaller craft were emerging from hidden positions throughout the Kepler 442 system, from asteroid fields, from the gas giants' moons, even from what had appeared to be empty space. Each craft was barely larger than a fighter, but their energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. The fascinating thing about studying a species for millennia, Chen continued, her tone remaining conversational despite the overwhelming tactical situation developing around them, is that you learn to predict their responses with remarkable accuracy. For instance, right now Admiral Zixathera is preparing to order her fleet into an aggressive formation, believing that her superior numbers and firepower will carry the day. Admiral Zixathera's hand froze halfway to her command console. The human was right. That had been exactly her intention. Commander Veltar is calculating firing solutions for a precision strike against our vessel, hoping to decapitate our command structure quickly. And I imagine at least 3 of your ship commanders are preparing to break formation and attempt flanking maneuvers. Every prediction was accurate. The bridge crew exchanged horrified glances as they realized their enemy had anticipated their every tactical response before they had even made them. "How?" whispered Commander Veltar. "Practice," Chen replied simply. 3,000 years of observing your species in conflict, studying your decision-making patterns, analyzing your cultural responses to stress. We've run this exact scenario 47,000 times in simulation, using historical data from every major fleet engagement in galactic history. On the tactical display, the small human craft began moving with impossible coordination. They didn't fly in the standard formations that every galactic military academy taught. Instead, they moved like a living organism, flowing around obstacles and threats with an organic fluidity that defied conventional tactics. "But Admiral," Chen continued, "we're not here to fight you. We're here to offer you the same opportunity we've extended to other species. Join us willingly, and your people will become part of something greater than any individual civilization could achieve. Your unique abilities, combined with our collective knowledge and resources, will benefit everyone." "And if we refuse?" Zixthara asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Then we take what we need anyway, but with considerably less regard for your comfort during the transition." The human's expression didn't change, but somehow her words carried an undertone of absolute certainty. "The choice is yours, Admiral. But I should mention that our ground operations on Kepler 442 are already complete." The communication feed shifted to show a view of the planet's surface. The 50 million colonists were still going about their daily routines, but now each of them wore a small device attached to their temple. They moved normally, spoke normally, and seemed completely unaware of any change in their circumstances. "Neural interface technology," Chen explained. "Completely harmless, I assure you. They're experiencing their normal lives while we gather information about their species' capabilities, their social structures, their individual skills. Think of it as an extended job interview process." "You're controlling their minds," Zixthera said with horror. "We're optimizing their experiences while we prepare suitable accommodations for them in our colonies. Many of them will find their new roles far more fulfilling than their previous lives. Agricultural workers might become terraforming specialists. Engineers might help design new technologies. Artists will have access to inspiration from hundreds of different cultures." Commander Veltar suddenly straightened at his console. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from all the human vessels. They're charging weapon systems we can't identify." "You have 10 minutes to decide, Admiral," Chen said pleasantly. "Accept our offer, and your crews will be treated as honored guests while we facilitate their transition to new and better lives. Refuse, and we'll simply take what we need and leave you to explain to the Galactic Council how you lost an entire fleet to a single human vessel." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Admiral Zixathera stared at the tactical display, watching as the human craft continued their mesmerizing dance around her fleet. Every simulation her military computers ran showed the same result: total defeat within minutes of engagement. For 3,000 years, they had dismissed humans as mythology. Now, they were discovering that the myths had understated the threat. The humans hadn't just been hiding and studying, they had been preparing for this moment with the patience and precision of apex predators. Admiral Zix Thara had made many difficult decisions during her military career, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Her fleet's tactical computers continued to project catastrophic losses if they engaged the human forces, yet every instinct screamed against surrender to an unknown enemy. Around her, the bridge crew waited in tense silence for orders that could determine the fate of galactic civilization. "Admiral," whispered Commander Veltar, "incoming priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're demanding a full tactical report." She activated her personal communicator, knowing that whatever she told the Council now would shape their response to humanity's emergence. "This is Admiral Zix Thara, reporting from Kepler 442. The situation has developed beyond our initial parameters. The unknown species has identified themselves as humans, matching the ancient legends scholar Pipnix presented. They claim to have been studying our civilizations for 3 millennia and appear to possess technological and tactical advantages that make military resistance inadvisable." Chancellor Morden's voice crackled through the communication array, distorted by distance and interference. "Admiral, you have the largest fleet ever assembled at your disposal. Surely you can handle a single enemy vessel?" "Chancellor, respectfully, we're not facing a single vessel. Our sensors detect thousands of craft using technology we don't understand, and they've somehow managed to pacify the entire population of Kepler 442 without triggering our monitoring systems. More importantly, they've demonstrated detailed knowledge of our military capabilities and tactical doctrines that suggests extensive long-term surveillance." There was a long pause before Chancellor Morden replied, his voice grim. "Admiral, Scholar Pipnix has made an unsettling discovery. He's been analyzing the ancient texts more thoroughly, cross-referencing accounts across multiple civilizations. The humans didn't just disappear 3,000 years ago. According to the records, they were driven away by a coalition of species that no longer exist." Admiral Zix Thara felt her blood chill. "What happened to those species, Chancellor?" "Unknown. Every reference to them was systematically removed from historical records. The only traces that remain are in fragmentary accounts that suggest they achieved some kind of victory against the humans, forcing them to retreat beyond the galactic rim. But within 2 centuries of that supposed victory, all of those species had vanished completely from galactic history." The implications struck Zix Thara like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been defeated 3,000 years ago. They had been gathering intelligence while their enemies celebrated their victory. Then they had systematically eliminated every species that had opposed them, leaving no trace of their existence except for the scattered legends that remained. "Admiral," interrupted Commander Veltar urgently, "the human vessel is transmitting again." Commander Chen reappeared on the main display, her expression unchanged but somehow more intense. "I hope you've had time to consider our offer, Admiral. However, I feel obligated to share some additional information that may influence your decision." The display shifted to show what appeared to be a vast space habitat, possibly hundreds of kilometers long. The structure teemed with activity as representatives of dozens of species worked together on projects that seemed to blend technology and biology in ways their scientists had never imagined. "This is New Geneva, one of our primary research and development colonies. The beings you see there are descendants of species that chose to join us voluntarily over the past 3,000 years. They've made remarkable contributions to our collective knowledge base." Chen's voice carried a note of genuine pride. "The Meridaxi developed our quantum displacement technology. The Corvani created our biological integration systems. The Zeltans designed our cultural assimilation protocols." Zix Thara recognized some of the species' names from archaeological records, civilizations that had mysteriously vanished from the galactic community centuries ago. She had assumed they were extinct. As you can see, we don't simply absorb other species. We integrate their unique capabilities into our collective while allowing them to maintain their cultural identities and individual purposes. Many of our volunteers report higher satisfaction levels than they experienced in their original societies. The scene shifted again, showing what appeared to be a war-torn planet. Massive machines were systematically dismantling cities while streams of beings were loaded onto transport vessels. Unlike the peaceful integration shown previously, this process was clinical and efficient, with no regard for the wishes of those being relocated. This, by contrast, is how we handle species that choose military resistance, Chen continued matter-of-factly. The Carillion Empire attempted to fight us approximately 400 years ago. They had advanced weapons technology and significant military experience. The process took 18 months and required considerably more resources than we prefer to expend. Admiral Zix Thara watched in horror as the images showed the complete dismantling of an entire civilization. Every building, every piece of infrastructure, every trace of the Carillion culture was systematically removed and transported away. When the process was complete, the planet appeared exactly as it had before intelligent life had ever evolved there. The Carillions now contribute their expertise in defensive systems engineering to our military development programs, Chen added. They're quite satisfied with their new roles, though the adjustment period was admittedly more traumatic than we prefer. Commander Veltar leaned close to Zixithara and whispered, "Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting massive movement in the outer system. Ships are emerging from concealment throughout the region. If these readings are accurate, we're looking at a fleet of thousands. You're wondering how we managed to position so many vessels without detection," Chen said, apparently monitoring their communications despite their encrypted channels. "The answer is that we've been here much longer than you realize. When your species first achieved interstellar travel, we were already watching. We've had observation posts and supply depots throughout your territory for over 2,000 years. The tactical display updated to show the true scope of human presence in their galaxy. Red indicators appeared throughout space that they had assumed was empty. Asteroid mining operations, monitoring stations, hidden shipyards, and what appeared to be massive industrial complexes tucked away in systems they had considered barren. We've been building our infrastructure alongside yours, learning your technologies, studying your cultures, and preparing for eventual integration. Every major technological advancement your species have made, we've adapted and improved upon. Every military strategy you've developed, we've tested against our own capabilities." Admiral Zixithara realized with growing horror that humanity's emergence wasn't an invasion. It was a harvest that had been in preparation for millennia. The humans had been cultivating galactic civilization, like farmers tending crops, waiting for the optimal moment to collect their investment. "Your time is up, Admiral," Chen announced pleasantly. "Have you reached a decision?" Zixthara looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew, beings from multiple species who had served together for years, who trusted her to protect not just their lives, but their civilizations. She thought about the billions of beings across the galaxy who were going about their daily lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this moment. "If we agree to your terms," she said slowly, "what guarantees do we have that our people will be treated humanely?" "None that you would find satisfactory," Chen replied honestly. "Your species value independence and individual choice above collective advancement. These values are incompatible with efficient integration. However, I can guarantee that cooperation will result in far better outcomes than resistance." Admiral Zixthara closed her eyes and made the decision that would echo through galactic history. "I hereby surrender this fleet to human authority and request that our crews be granted the same consideration you've shown to other cooperative species." "A wise choice, Admiral. Transition teams are already en route to your vessels." As the human ships moved with impossible speed toward her fleet, Admiral Zix Thera activated her personal communicator one final time. This is Admiral Zix Thera to all Galactic Council forces. Humanity has emerged from the Outer Rim with overwhelming technological and numerical superiority. They have been observing and preparing for integration for 3,000 years. Military resistance appears futile. I recommend immediate diplomatic contact and consideration of their integration offers. The reply came not from the Galactic Council, but from Commander Chen. Thank you, Admiral. That message has been transmitted to all Council worlds. I should mention that integration teams are already en route to your major population centers. The process will begin immediately. Through the viewports of the Stellar Dominion, Admiral Zix Thera watched as thousands of human vessels emerged from concealment throughout the galaxy, moving toward every inhabited world with the precision of a plan that had been centuries in the making. The greatest military fleet in galactic history had been neutralized without firing a single shot, and the humans had revealed that they had been positioned to simultaneously control every major civilization from the beginning. As transition teams began boarding her flagship, Admiral Zix Thera understood that they hadn't just encountered a superior enemy. They had discovered that they had never been free to begin with. For 3,000 years, humanity had been the hidden architects of galactic civilization, guiding their development and preparing for this moment when the harvest would finally begin. The age of independent species was ending. The age of human integration had begun. And despite her fear, Admiral Zix Thera found herself curious about what role her people would play in whatever humanity was building among the stars.